but we're going to go fast forward. All right. So everybody, hi, welcome to MVP Office Hours. Today's May 16th. We're so glad you're here. Registration is bit.ly/MVPOH as always. It is a recurring registration, so save that and check in with us all the time. We meet on the first and third Fridays. You can find us in any number of channels, but specifically the community. And let's see, do we have that link? Copy link address, drop it in the chat, all the things. We've got some upcoming events. Tahoe Square, we can see what you're doing.
Oh, sorry. I was going to put the link in.
I already
My bad.
did it.
I'll come back to it.
Tahoe Dreaming's happening right now. In the next couple of weeks, we got Texas Dreamin'. I think Ann will be there, and then Montreal Dreamin'. Anyone going to Montreal Dreamin'? I'm not traveling.
And it's the 5th and 6th, just as an
5th and 6th.
FYI.
It's a 2-day. We'll get that updated. I'll be at Connections in Chicago. And then Dreamin' in Color is down in Raleigh, and then Southeast Dreamin'. And then that kind of covers June. So if you don't have summer vacation plans, now you do. Gilda pushed out the fun run for Connections. So if you are coming to Chicago for Connections, there's a 7 a.m. fun run on day 2, I think. But I don't know. If you're local, you're going to want to shower afterwards. So I don't know how you're going to swing that unless you're staying downtown. Next slide. All right. Again, the success community is where we try to house the conversation when we're not in person. This is in person, I guess. Rules of the road here. We invite everyone to share their experiences. However, post the links and resources and answers in the chat. If you have questions, post in the chat, raise your hand, do all the things. Darlene, you're doing it right. Thank you. We want to have fun, but we want to keep it professional. And please remember, we are recording the session. So if you cannot be recorded, or if you shouldn't say things that should be recorded, you should wave goodbye or just kind of fade back into the background, and then check out the recording later. Also a reminder, please do not share any private or proprietary information. We want all of you to keep your jobs, and under no circumstances is AI invited to the conversation. Oof.
It's a lot.
Okay. Let's see, we have 3 things. So do we have Rebecca?
So Rebecca and Kathleen had questions from last week and they weren't able to attend. I just wanted to call it out. If they were able to attend today, we can come back to them. Okay. And then Katie is not on the line, I don't think. And then Darlene is, I believe. Yes. Okay. Hi, Darlene. You're muted, so you can talk to us more about this. But if you click into the nonprofit cloud for programs care plans that Darlene has, my co-leader Denise Carboni actually sent me a message. She's like, Joy, I've got someone who's got a question for MVP Office Hours. I was like, let's do this. It's fine. It's please. So Michael Kolodner, you got your thinking cap on? You ready? My nonprofit peeps. Okay. So Darlene, you want to just give us a quick recap?
Sure. So my client is a nonprofit that assists adults with disabilities, and it helps match them with a home provider. And I'm at the stage of setting up their cases, and I'm getting some contradicting on how to handle the care plan. So I have of either putting the care plan on the case or also a care plan on the case program. So, and we have nonprofit cloud for programs, and I'm not sure exactly which route I should go. I'm leaning towards having the care plan attached to the case program and going that route, and have a case as either a support case or home provider onboarding, 2 separate cases. And so everything be working off of the case, but they can have multiple programs. So that's why I was bringing in the case program. So I'm basically asking for guidance on the best way to configure capturing the care plans. Don't everybody talk at once, please.
So the first question is, does anyone have any experience with this particular scenario? And I'm not seeing anyone get excited and twitchy about this. So we may have, did you stump us all in the first 10 minutes? Oh no.
Let me ask some clarifying questions. So
Sure.
This is new nonprofit cloud. So
Yes.
Okay. So your case your care plan object that you're saying is child to case.
Yes, but
That
everything
is
I'm
your-
finding and researching it is saying that it should be on the case program in order to be able to expand off of that. And like I said, and it's and I'm like fighting with it. And I actually asked like Chat GPT. I'm like, I'm getting pushback on this. Why? And it keeps on directing me like, this is what you want to do. And I'm like, I don't, and it makes sense, but everybody's going towards bringing it off of the case. And I just,
So, I mean, I feel like those Salesforce employees on the line should probably cover their ears. I think you should probably use your best judgment and not go with whatever data model Salesforce has published / installed for you from the nonprofit cloud, because if their data model doesn't work for you, then it's not useful to you, and there's no brilliance behind it that you would be missing out on. If you are getting value from the nonprofit cloud objects that come from the various industries clouds objects, great. But if you're not, then you don't need to use those industries, that industry's data model that is incredibly complicated and does not bring a ton of special new functionality with it. Was that fair and balanced?
Extremely balanced.
very diplomatic.
As a Salesforce employee, will just
Tell me what
completely
to do.
agree. No, I'm just gonna agree. Like if the model that ships out of the box is general and it generally works, and in many cases it is more complex, or I shouldn't say that it is more complex. It supports more complex business processes than you may need. Right. And so in that instance, it's just more cumbersome than than you actually need to track. You have something that is a little bit more straightforward. So do what makes sense.
So I have my case program, which is like the individual support case.
Yeah.
And then they could be connected with a program which is the matching process. And then also they could be in a program of day training for a job.
Mhm.
So then are you suggesting it would connect the case and the program, go the route of having a case program of an enrollment in matching the individual in a house, and then the care plans would be under that case program? They get so many hours of consulting, they get
Right.
this assistance move in.
Can I
So
ask another clarifying
please.
question? Yeah. You mentioned being master detail. Do you literally mean that, or do you mean having a direct relationship too?
It does, like you said, the way the system is set up, it has the care plan and master detail with the case. It just needs to have a relationship, I believe, with the case program.
It's master detail in the nonprofit cloud ERD?
Yes, and the nonprofit
That's
cloud
surprising.
for
With-
care plan is a master detail relationship currently with the case object.
Which is the parent?
The case.
So you can't have a care plan record without a case?
You can have currently you can have a care plan on a case, yes, with the case record, and then also I believe it said something about, let's see. So basically the program represents the overall service, and then you have a program enrollment, and then the
Mhm.
case program is the junction object connecting the case to a program. So it connects John's home placement case
So if it's a formal junction object, then it is going to be a
Mhm.
tightly coupled relationship. It will be a master detail.
Yes.
But what that's doing is it's allowing you to have one case with multiple programs that it's related to,
Yeah.
right? And so that as a model isn't crazy. What I'm wondering is if you don't actually need the junction object for anything other than that it creates a many-to-many relationship, then you could kind of effectively hide it unless there are other things that are happening on it that you need to have access to. So the big way to do that is on your related list, you only put fields for the case object and your program object. I forget what it's actually called. But if you only include those fields and you don't include any fields for the actual junction object record itself, then the
case
junction
program.
object sort of just like fades away and you don't see it. You just interact with it's there and it's functional. And when you create the records, you'll see those fields. But you kind of see you see the case and you see the program. And that just like kind of pushing it to the side might be enough to get you the kind of result that you want.
Okay. Okay. So it says like the case program was created to reflect the individual is participating in multiple programs over time. So that's why they're doing the care plan, each one of those case programs, because it's specific to that junction. And I know this doesn't help either.
Oops.
And everything,
That helps me.
yeah.
I love that. I'm all about
Well,
Squire, what are you
it. I
showing
love all
us?
these little.
That ERD is ridiculous.
I think I'm trying to make a point that
Yeah.
yes, it is.
I would ask
There's a
Darlene,
program
is this,
management smaller version. So
is this a new implementation or are
yes.
you, okay, so you're just brand new, nothing's started. I mean,
I just need to know which route to go. Do I just keep it on the case care plans
Well, if
and
it
not
has
develop out the case program?
if it has a master detail, you can't not use that because you can't create the child object without the parent. If it was lookup, that'd be different. So you're forced to deal with the master detail. But what I'm hearing, I think if I understand your question, and I don't have that ERD in my head, you'd be shocked to learn, because I'm not working with it right now. But if I understand your question, it's whether whether you want to create your own custom relationship from the service plan to the case program. If that would be useful in your implementation and the creation of the original record with the master detail filled is happening smoothly, if you can smoothly also fill that lookup, it's going to have to be a lookup, right? Because it's going to do what you think makes sense, then I think you should do what makes sense to you.
Okay.
But you
Because-
can't get out of that master detail.
Yeah.
So if that's going to get in your way, then you should just live with that.
Just live with that and keep the care plan on that case and then just possibly have a lookup to a case program.
I mean, I hate to say this, or
know.
make your own custom care plan object that works in the way your
You
client needs it to
wants.
work.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. Is your ultimate goal to be able to report on the number of these thingies that are related to this thing? Like, do you need that functionality, or do you just need to be able to, when viewing a thing, be able to say it is essentially this, and I'm displaying something about this on the screen? I said that in a really obtuse way, but I did it on purpose. Sorry. Like when I'm viewing the case, do I just need to be able to see this care plan? Or do I need a real relationship there?
When I'm viewing a case, I need to see what the care plan is attached to. Is it attached to the matching process? Is it attached to the assistance with job onboarding? So that's kind of like where the benefits and the care plan consultant hours are being captured. That's my understanding. I think I don't want to take up too much time here. I'm sure we have others. I think I'm going to go. I'll look into the route that Michael of keeping the care plan on the case and just a look up to a case program that connects that route. I think I'm just right at that sweet spot of things are just too new.
Mm.
Well,
You know,
the reason I asked if it was a new implementation is, nothing's been deployed and it's still, everything's brand new. There's no reason not to, dump the new nonprofit cloud and go back to MPSP then, where it would make much more sense. As,
I don't know if
say it.
that's feasible, but we'll see.
The
All right,
option
thank you
is-
all. I
the
appreciate
option is
it.
better now than later.
yeah,
Right,
that's why
right.
I said, if it's a new implementation,
I mean,
Okay,
the last thought on this, it depends on the size of this org. If this org is small or medium, supporting nonprofit cloud is probably not viable. I have said this over and over again in print and in speech, and no one has disagreed with me. So
and that's the classification. It's probably more on the medium.
then it's probably too complicated for them to maintain. Unless there's functionality they're getting out of it that's super
Yeah.
powerful that you can't build on your own with ScreenFlows or whatever.
Or you're scaling to large, but you're medium now, right?
Well, everyone thinks they're scaling to large, but anyhow.
Good point. The only thing I'm going to offer, Darlene, is I definitely hear you doing the research and hearing lots of feedback. Have you kind of sat down and just said, okay, if I do it this way, what do I get? What do I lose? If I do it the other way, what do I get? Like, if you put that on paper and just done it your own pro con to help you kind of focus. A lot of times, I can't remember who said it, but like lists are great, right? So sometimes just getting the word vomit on page and then being like, okay, that's telling me what I need to know. Have you done that exercise?
Well, I've done it with mapping it out with Lucidchart and all this stuff on the route of, bringing in the case program. And then I got pushback. Well, we can't do it off the case program. It's on the care plan.
Sure.
So
I guess I'm not even thinking like ERD, like don't design anything. Just from a narrative perspective.
Positive and
If I do
negatives.
it this
Okay.
way, here's what I get, here's what I lose, here are the risks, here's the scalability. And like sometimes that just, even if one seems wrong, it'll
become clearer.
Yeah, the outline tells you, well, it doesn't seem right, but it is right. Like to Michael's point, like you might come down to like, you know what we're getting is the headache of NPSP. Okay, well that erases the right side. Now my left is my decision and I work with that decision. So
Okay. I'll do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for letting me
Anytime,
take on a
darling.
big chunk of this time. I appreciate
And
it.
it's not. We have so Jana has a question because Katie, I didn't see her pop in yet. Jana, you had a question and I think you got a lot of it answered in the chat, but you want to share?
Yeah, I think the chat probably got me going down the right path. Yeah, this is an org that we're trying to sort of revamp and get people away from their periodic usage and starting to create like some user guides. We're doing our own kind of office hours where I'm more showing them things and then allowing them to open up. So I wanted to show them a couple things and then be able to say, yeah, and going forward, we're going to have these user guides accessible in Salesforce. But the question that I put in the chat was, what's the best way to do that? How would we build that out? And what do people find? Again, just more of a best practice around how to face that to the end users.
I didn't see guidance. I didn't see like outside of knowledge, some of the built-in stuff in the options. Have you looked at those? I mean, are we talking about onboarding or are we talking about an FAQ?
More of like an FAQ, or if we've shown them something and they just need to go back and reference, or maybe they're someone that didn't sit in a training and they're a new user, I can say, oh, here's something to kind of get started. You can look through this quick guide.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, Michael, you had your finger up and then I jumped in.
I was just starting to type it in the chat. I will also finish the chat in a sec. You mentioned in your question, Jana, you mentioned PDFs. I strongly recommend something that's not static. So not a pile of PDFs, not a pile of Word docs, not knowing the organization you're talking about, but if it could be a Google site or a SharePoint site or a series of interlinked Google Docs or 365, whatever it is, something that's easy for you to like make little changes, throw in a new screenshot if something changes, rather than a static pile of documents that also aren't convenient for someone to navigate between. It's a wiki is what you're talking about needing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Thank you. We do have sort of an intranet type SharePoint that I can certainly put some things on there and have the link accessible instead of a static document. Yeah, thank you for that.
David, you have something to add?
Yeah, I would say there was a comment in there. If it's new users, yeah, I'd stay away from the service console. Someone who's started Salesforce before the console was even born, it's a horrible thing. Most people who've been in Salesforce long enough agree. So that's not anything new or anything. It's just the inability to change the widths and such, it's just crazy. But yeah, there was another comment. So basic, I would also really leverage dynamic forms. So based on your security model, they only see what they need to see. And then leverage the text blocks on the page layout. If it's something, this page does this, put a text block saying, make sure you click here, make sure you do this, or even with path, you can do that. So there's, besides, as usual, Michael's always has great ideas about the wiki, but, if you just want it blatant in their face type of thing, leverage what you can stick on the page layout to, what I do in all my documentation is big red arrows, it's like, click there type of thing, so you want it to be as blatant and as non-confusing as possible. So yeah, if you can put big text blocks of saying, make sure you click here, make sure you click there type of thing, it sounds dumb, but it really helps the end user who doesn't spend their day in the org. So my 2 cents.
Thanks. Yeah, I was trying to think as well about the user experience, and that's really helpful.
Jana, the chat is absolutely blowing up with suggestions for you. So
thank you, everyone.
Copy and paste what you need, and I can get behind a lot of it. We've used, depending on your org and what the culture of the org or the company is, like you have lots of choices. And depending on what your learners need, obviously like the video versus the screenshots, are always different for everyone. And the in-app guidance, as the help bubbles help along the way. But my favorite is the banners on the dynamic form. That, tell them to fill out the null fields, like say,
So I've been drinking a lot of Agent Force Kool-Aid lately. What is the likelihood that at some point there will be an agent like in-app? And if so, what could be built now to achieve the ability to just be like, oh, I'm just going to ask the agent the question that's in the documentation? I know it's a lot of what ifs and assumptions, but it's accelerating fast. So what would the recommendation be from this group if we were like, at some point I wanted to just ask my platform the question that's in the documentation?
You just described Clippy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm
hoping
it's
the puppy.
People love Clippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Maybe there's no answer, but like in my head, I'm like, boy, if this continues to accelerate the way it is, would you want them as Word docs because they're most easily evaluated by like the AI? Would you want them to be offline? Would you like just a thought? Maybe it's not worth thinking about.
Yeah,
I
it's
will.
definitely worth thinking about, at least on my end. My org isn't quite ready for that, but that is
No.
something that is probably, sometime later next year, that we would definitely want to implement versus having a PDF. But we're not quite there, so I just need to give them some documentation for tips and tricks as a reference today. But I totally agree, and I have that mindset of thinking, what comes after that? What's the next phase?
Yeah.
I think y'all are speaking of the same thing because, starting off with the PDF and having your things documented for the agent to learn off of and understanding the guardrails, etc., policies, procedures, yeah. Then you can then launch Agentforce, you get that feedback. So users can be like, hey, this is not enough, et cetera, et cetera. That would then translate to modification of said instructions and or content for agent to be better.
Just keep in mind the age of your users, because when I was at a now defunct LTL carrier, the main guy of the trainer wanted to put together the Word doc for everything in the org, and it was 100 pages. And I'm like, no salesperson's going to do this. So that's why we all made short videos, 5 minutes or less, because attention span of the TikTok generation.
Did you say 100 pages?
Yeah, it was 100 pages because I gave him the videos and then he put together this document because that's what he did. He'd been there since the 70s. And then I'm like, no, the salespeople are going to want to do that. So we just gave out my videos as the training.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of work though. Wow.
So if you are working towards an agentic future in your org, I would strongly encourage you to go with a knowledge article or a Slack canvas. And the benefit of a knowledge article is the agent is actually contextually aware of version, and the agents can check multiple versions and then use the updated version to course correct, which I have seen in a demo. So today, if you do a lot of work, you can get it to happen, but in the future, it should be a lot easier, where as you version how we do this, what this policy is, as you version that over time, it is able to like provide this really, really good contextual response to, well, what's our policy on blah, blah, blah. It actually just changed. It is now this. It used to be that. It's now this. And that type of information for an end user is really, really powerful, because they don't have to stay on top of things because the agent is doing it for them. The other thing that I would say about Slack, the benefit there is that from a cost perspective, the function to search Slack consumes a smaller number of credits on the back end than having your agent search the same amount of information in knowledge. So balance the things. Is Slack Canvas better than a knowledge article? No, it lacks the versioning. It's always current state. It's like a record, right? Without history. When the way that the agent is searching it, it's like that. So there's a give and take there, but both of those solutions will be native to the agent and require less work. Anything else that you do, you have to then do some type of connection, some type of maintenance of like pulling documents, removing documents. And then you get into a bit of a battle of like, well, there's actually competing information in our documentation, which I'm sure never happens at any of our companies, right? But sometimes that does happen. So when you're chasing down like really, really big monolithic documents, that is a bad way to do it. And the smaller, like what Christy was saying, these smaller chunked pieces of information are better. It's my 2 cents. But also I work for Salesforce and I work specifically with Slack. So like, Slack solution is probably the best one.
Probably biased, but thanks, Mike. Okay, so we have 2 more questions in the chat. We've got Heidi with lightning runtime for flows, and then Pat has some questions with Salesforce Maps. So Heidi, are you ready to chat more about your challenge?
Yeah.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi. So I was working on the flow approval process functionality, just experimenting with it, see what it can do, and ran into a little glitch. And it actually came back to our Lightning runtime for flows configuration. We don't have it enabled in this org that I'm working in. And it's been available from what I can see since like 2018. I have to do some more digging, some more testing as far as, why don't we specifically have it enabled? Because this is just a recent discovery. But just curious if anybody here has any knowledge, any background with having issues with that in the past, and maybe some gotchas to watch out for.
Slow down. Or
Go ahead.
no, I was kidding. Everybody's kind of hoping that someone else is going to take it. Go ahead.
The approval orchestration, like being available for free, is fairly new. So I don't know. I don't know if
Well, I'm not worried about that part of it. I'm worried
Okay.
about the Lightning runtime for flows. It's a setting in process automation settings. And that's been around since 2018 from what I can see. And I found a couple of links. I'll drop them in the chat here as far as.
I mean, what's your question about the Lightning runtime?
Well, just because it looks like I may need to just do some testing on what we currently have just to make sure nothing breaks. Is kind of what I get out of it, but.
Yeah. Odds are, if you have built a flow like since 2020, which when did flows get API versions? Does anyone remember off the top of their head? I want to say it was summer 19, but I could be wrong. If you have a flow that has an API version on it, the odds are very, very, very good that it is Lightning runtime compatible. Before you make any change, you should always test it completely thoroughly, right?
Right.
And nothing you learn on this call or any other should prevent you from testing every single flow that you think is actually important,
totally.
right?
Totally.
But the Lightning runtime, there are a handful of things that you can do that are not compatible with Lightning runtime, and you will get a specific error on every flow. Like it'll give you the warning. It'll be like such and such is not Lightning runtime compatible. And it's usually now at this point, I think you have to do something custom to get it. I haven't seen it pop up on anything standard in a pretty long time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, without the runtime on, you don't get some of the cool formatting stuff.
Yeah.
So like the ability to do multiple columns and other stuff.
Yeah.
I would seriously just turn it on in a sandbox, test a bunch of flows, and then go with it. It's on in all my orgs.
I think it's on by default with anything since that rollout too, right?
I don't know. I think we had it turn on by default later.
Okay.
There was a cruck, or no, there hasn't been a cruck. Because I don't what I mean by that is a critical update, like a thing that forces you to actually turn it on. I don't think there's a forced turn on for that.
Okay.
Because it's just, for the most part, it's additional features. But like Linda said, I mean, there are some things that don't work. I honestly can't remember what new stuff, or if there is anything that you can actually add now out of the standard canvas that isn't runtime compatible. I think everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Every standard thing
Yeah,
that
I
you
think
add
our
now is.
concern was the older type stuff, because we have some things in there that are, they're older than what we'd like to see. So definitely
Yeah,
need to do some testing.
What do you mean by older than you'd like to see? Because does that
Do you
mean
mean doesn't have an API version?
do you mean like the flow doesn't have an API version?
I think we have a couple that don't. Yeah.
Though
So that's a real thing.
Those would be the ones that I would test with it turned on in a sandbox. But I would also highly encourage you to review those and bring them up so that they have a flow version.
Well, hold on.
Unless you can't, because there are situations where you
Mhm.
can't, like, if you have field service, mobile, those flows don't get an API version, but they work with runtime on.
So, but I'm not worried about that. Prior to, so I am a nerd and I did this study, and prior to API versions flows, there was a wall clock problem with flow. Essentially, if you were to take these flows that don't have an API version and you debug them, and you look at the timestamps in your debug log, you will note that the flow takes 0 time. It does not cause the clock to tick. That is, we knew it at the time. Like, we knew that this was an inherent bug in the system. And when we added API versions, there were some customers who did not advance their flows because their flows would then hit the clock and fail. They would run out of time, right? And so there was kind of like a red herring error that would be thrown where you'd run your flow, but it wouldn't have an API version. It doesn't hit the clock. And then you'd see an Apex limit when your Apex code ran. And it was literally your Apex starts. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, you're out of time. And your transaction fails. And we're like, oh, I have a problem with my Apex. It's not. It was actually your flow. So be very careful. If you actually have flows that are that old and they're really complex and they're doing a lot, they might not work. Like, you might save it as a new version, stick an API version on it, and all of a sudden we're going to be like, you're trying to do way too much. You're just out of luck. Right. In which case, then you have to then you're redesigning, you're re-architecting things. You're starting to go, oh, I got to start using my async stuff now. I've got to have an async path. I've got to go a totally different direction with this. Right.
Yep.
So be very, very careful. If you do truly have some heavy stuff in a flow with no API version, there's a good chance it won't literally save. It will not work. Like, works, you just save it as a new version, turn that version on, fails, and that's why.
Good background. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Time is a construct. You guys are, oh my gosh, you're killing me. All right, so let's see. Pat, you have questions about Salesforce maps?
Yes. Are there any Salesforce maps users in this group or people that have installed it? Number one. And number two, what is the lift to do it? I've been asked to do it in my company that I'm working for. However, I have got them to push back a month so that I can learn it. And I can see it doesn't work in our org, So I was really doing some tap dancing on that.
I've done 2 implementations of it. One of the implementations, Salesforce offered a jump start that we paid extra for. It was totally worth it to help me get through it faster.
Agreed.
The guys who run it it's a third party who runs it, but they're very knowledgeable. They help you learn through the process.
Okay.
I will say it made it easier for us to do trainings of the users to put together what that training was going to look like and what they needed to know, and to have everything set up for them when they first logged in. But I had to do a lot of setup where I logged in as that user to create things for them beforehand.
There's a lot of onion peeling there, because until you've got it, nobody knows how they're going to use it or what they're going to get out of it, but you can't implement it well unless you know that already. So there's a lot of strong BA stuff there. Lynn, I don't know about you, but so much of it was, what do you need to do? Not, here's the things you can do. Getting it implemented was the easy part, right? Is install and a couple of configuration steps felt really comfortable, but then it was like, okay, going farther, and the change management and the handing off, it was so easy for the assumption to be like, oh, you'll help us build these routes or build these notes. And no, you need to own this. It's your tooling, right? So, I mean,
I think a lot of it too was the second place I implemented it, and they had a process they were doing with Google Maps, and taking what they did with that process and moving that over so they could use the Salesforce Maps to do that process in a really more automated fashion because they literally were doing their routing, saying, hey, I'm going to start here. I want to go to these 5 places. Google Maps help me. And they were getting some really sometimes crazy routes. And
I'm sorry.
and I will say one of the things they really liked was they were able to throw in, hey, I know I'm going to have to get gas at this point because I've got this really long western route with lots of space in between. Being able to throw in, hey, I'm going to stop at this one of, well, I mean, we worked for a travel company, so we own gas stations. I'm going to stop at this gas station we own to fill up, so they could kind of have that in there and really get a better gauge on their time is one of the really big points for them.
I think there's also a lot to be discovered as so like unless you already know, but in our case, what we found was that it was really a lot more about discovery than route planning. So kind of those like those regional groupings and analytics to help identify like, oh, that's something we should go do, not here's what we need to do, how are we going to do it the best. And because that's 2 different implementation patterns as well. Pat, are you dealing with just like, is it literally just routing or is there more to it than that?
Let me give you the scenario. Say a salesman's going to this area. They're going to go see these 6 customers. Basically, what's the best route once they get into the area?
Sure.
Or let's say a customer ghosts them. And all right, who's around me that I can go see, kind of like drop in. I'm in this point, I'm at this place. Who's in the area that I could go see?
Right.
And those are both great use cases for maps that are really not difficult to teach the users to use.
Okay.
But from the perspective of building it, 2 entirely different outcomes too, right? So like it doesn't, knowing those things or what the third thing might be, change, like to your first question about lift, Pat, that's how big it goes. Because then the next step is things like, well, do I need to parse this or privatize some of this information, or are the, our independent routes sales person versus like territory versus, like there's a lot going on there. So that's where, just it gets exponential, I think, if you don't early on know some of those requirements.
Okay. Yeah, they
and I would say the other big gotcha is making sure that for a given salesperson, their manager can see, has the visibility to the stuff, especially the routes.
All right.
I know one of the big requirements we had was that the salespeople, when they put their route together, had to email the route to their manager. Luckily, that is a single click button that's easy to set up, but still not fun. And then teaching the managers to read it was always lots of fun.
David, you've got your hand up. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
There's one manager. It's only going to be 4 salespeople that report all to the same person. So, all right. Wow, man, I'm really going to be like failing on this.
You're going to be learning on this. David, did you have something to add? Taco has something to add.
David, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, I was talking to me. So, yeah, I don't want to pile on top of you there, Pat. As Squire and Linda said, really understanding the scope is incredibly important for maps. So are you going to be going into territory management on top of this? Is just, it adds the complexity exponentially. And if the company can afford it, like Linda said, the Jumpstart program for this is important, but it's just a jumpstart. It's not an implementation. So it's important to understand that as well. And the third thing that I've seen consistently from the customers that I deal with that have both territory management and maps, stay as close to out of the box as humanly possible. It's designed for a very specific use case. It's not designed to be run off of custom objects and other things customers like to do. So, yeah. So I mean, it can be very simple, but again, as everyone's been saying, it can be incredibly complex just by adding one thing. So make sure you've scoped it completely out, do your discoveries, everyone's saying, with your internal team to make sure all the permutations are set out ahead of time. Make sure those business processes, like you said, okay, this is the business process. This person, salesperson A is going to go see this person. Well, what happens with that? They need to, if someone ghosts them, that's another permutation of that business process. So make sure you have the business process completely documented so that you understand what needs to be built rather than finding out halfway down the road, oh, well, we need to add this, because that is going to screw you in the end.
I'm going to also have to add one other thing too. It's way easier on paper to get buy-in to what it requires the users to do after implemented than it is to build it and then go, why aren't you using it? And I say that because there is quite a bit of user interaction to get a route functional and interact with it appropriately to show that it's closed and things like that. And if they don't do it, the work you're doing is wasted too. And it's not your responsibility to make them do that. But if they buy in early, you've got executive sponsorship to say, when this is done, this is your responsibilities. That'll save you a lot of headache, I think.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
Well, thanks, Squire. I really appreciate that because the executive is all bought in. They're over bought in. And I had to really, really fight to get them to let's push back a month. They're over bought in.
Yeah, and the executive might be bought in, but only bought in like, again, underwear gnomes, right? Like install it and we're going to get lots of profits. And like, you do realize your teams have to do work to make this, like fill in that gap, make sure they understand, and even ask for, like, you've heard us say this a million times, like, oh, cool, that's our executive sponsor. And your responsibility as the executive sponsor isn't just to write a check, but to help enforce the change management on the people that I am not, as an admin, responsible for. And then get that buy-in as well, because it starts to build. And it also helps you the next time a conversation comes up when they want to install or implement Agentforce or whatever. Then you'd be like, hey, remember how we talked about maps and how either succeeded or failed because of that? Now we do it again, and they get used to that. It builds a culture.
Thank you.
Good luck.
And also, yes, that.
I think we tapped on all the questions that popped up in the chat. If anyone has another question, unmute yourself and scream it out now because you have like 5 minutes.
David wanted to verify that 42 was the right answer. I see that as a question in here.
Yes.
We don't know what
the answer to life, universe, and everything.
Yes, it is. It's the answer to everything.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, you know what? You all deserve a breather. If you have anything to tell me, like, what's your favorite new candy this week? Like, because I'm always looking for some new candy because my jelly beans were such a disappointment.
Yeah, you're not going to
tried Oreos?
We were at Costco on whatever day it was. They were sampling. They're called Sour Sticks. They were gummy and they were like, I don't know, a couple inches long. Highly enjoyable if you're specifically looking for candy.
Interesting.
Grace and something a little sour.
Yeah, Grace brought home some marshmallowy gummy thing, and I don't know what I don't know what we were gonna do with it. I was
You want Butterfingers. You want candy, you want Butterfingers.
I do like a Butterfinger, but I don't like how sticky they are.
You buy the little bite, you get the mini size.
The little BB Butterfinger BBs or whatever.
No, just like the Halloween fun size ones.
Oh,
so
those, yeah.
Just a bite.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Oh, just an FYI, I'm sorry I missed 2 weeks ago. It just totally.
That's okay, Kathy. I had coffee crisp while you were gone.
Well, that's good because you're not getting them from me anytime soon. Yeah,
good.
I actually ended up submitting a support case to Salesforce about that Portuguese thing, and they just, it's just probably something that left over from whoever actually implemented or something. I don't know, something like that. So ended up being but I was just more curious if anybody else had actually seen that happen.
The Portuguese thing?
Yeah, it was.
What was the Portuguese thing?
Yeah, that on the knowledge page layout, all the section titles were in Portuguese.
Rest of
So
it was all in
on-
English, but just the section titles were in Portuguese. Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
oh. And this just happened to you? Or was it all your users?
No. This was just it was one of my new clients who just got a new Salesforce org, I don't know, 3 months ago or something like that.
So brand new org.
Brand new org, brand new to Salesforce. It freaked him out.
There's little gnomes in the background playing games.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's an underwear gnome.
And I think I can't remember because I don't work with them often enough, but I think
Sure.
actually the first time we saw it, even trying to change it, didn't change it. Now it does. So I did change it like a couple of weeks ago and it's holding, but they just sort of said, yeah, it's something that sometimes happens.
Wow.
Something that sometimes happens. That's interesting.
Squire, I don't know if you realize this, but underwear gnome really stood out in in your earlier comment.
I use underwear gnome in conversation all the time. It's so perfect for the way executives think.
I mean, I'm all about it. That's gonna be new and added into my
vernacular.
I'm gonna make an underwear gnome emoji and add it
Awesome.
into
boy.
the Salesforce internal org.
I think can we get that in shirt force underwear gnomes?
Oh
Underwear
my
gnome?
gosh. Oh my gosh.
I'm on board.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know
I
what,
heard
Andrea?
that's
we
I heard
need
that's
we're
the
gonna get
next
that submitted.
Astro character. The next Astro character is gonna have
Oh.
that design.
So y'all
So
are
just
Astro
you know.
in just Astro in underpants. Like
no,
that's it?
no, absolutely no. There are some things that we're not supposed to. No, stop it. Astro doesn't. No.
Wear pants.
Right.
No,
that's so he
I
doesn't
have
wear underwear either.
Astro. I have Astro in pants.
I have an Astro in pants right here. Hold on a second.
Sorry, you do real.
Okay, what did you start?
I thought Astro was wearing a costume the whole time. Doesn't he take the hood down?
Thanks for joining the quick how-to screencast brought to you by Self. Hit subscribe.
Who's listening? Is that me?
Pat.
It's Pat. There you
I was.
go. I do not believe, Squire, that there is an Astro that is not the thing that you are suggesting could be removed.
I feel like I saw maybe early
There's
on
no underpants.
where like the
Going
ears
commando.
and the
Yeah.
head came over like a hood.
Like a
And it
hood,
was
yeah.
like a onesie almost.
Yeah, there's a hooded Astro without anything on. There's Bionic Astro. That doesn't have any clothes. He's a robot Astro.
But
he's
Astro as a robot is a
Astro,
thing.
Yeah.
right? But Astro as the
Astro as a human is what I don't think you will see.
Yeah, humanoid. For some reason I feel like I saw that in days past of like the hood back, the hair was out, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong lots of times. Lots and lots of times. Probably several times today in the last hour.
Was it under who, what, when, where gnome, or was it under?
It was an underwear gnome.
I mean,
That wasn't
you probably will see it. They're making a real life How to Train Your Dragon movie. For sure, they'll make a real life Astro,
How to Train Your Astro.
the astronomical movie using like real people.
Sure.
So
Timothy Chalamet as Astro.
Like
I get
cats.
it. I get
you
it.
know,
Timothy Chalamet
like cats.
is Astro.
Yeah.
Like cats. All right, y'all. We're gonna shut this down. This is nutty, y'all.
Like, come on.
No, I've got to go. Squire's got to go, and so we're gonna shut down this party. Stu, we're glad to see you. Michael, glad to see you. Darling, thanks for joining us. Linda, hi. Pat, hi. Andrew, yay. Christy, Kathy, David, thank you. Adriana, Jana, thank you. Anne Marie, thank you. Melissa, yay. Eric, yay. And Isaac, I appreciate you being here. You're very quiet though. Marie, you too. All right, friends. We'll see you later. Happy Friday. And June 6th is our next
June
meeting.
6th.
I'm
Yep.
getting
June
you,
6th.
and I'm getting you a romper room
A
wand thing.
A rubber.
She needs the mirror without the mirror.
The mirror
magic
without the mirror,
The
yeah.
magic mirror. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Bye, friends.
Bye all. Thank you.
You have to leave now.
I do. Bye.
We appreciate you. Bye. Bye.